The United States announces an extended Israel-Lebanon ceasefire. Lebanon reports 2 dead and 17 injured as Israel redeploys in the south. And France and the European Union signal easing Syrian sanctions. It's 8 p.m. Cairo local time and you're now watching Q News. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Lebanon.
كل المستفيدين المدنيين وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بيخوف.
American media outlets have announced that the White House said that the Israel-Lebanon ceasefire will extend until February 18th. The White House also confirmed that Lebanon, Israel and the U.S. will initiate negotiations to secure the release of Lebanese detainees captured after October 7th of 2023. The U.S. emphasized the importance of extending the ceasefire and welcomed Israel's partial withdrawal from central Lebanon. However, Israel's Security Cabinet approved maintaining forces in parts of southern Lebanon beyond the withdrawal deadline. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun met with caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati to discuss developments in southern Lebanon and ongoing efforts to ensure the completion of Israel's withdrawal from occupied towns and villages. Meanwhile, the Lebanese news agency reported a growing influx of citizens returning to towns and villages in the western and central sectors, particularly Bin Shbail. The Lebanese army has intensified its presence in these areas, while UNIFIL forces continue patrolling southern Lebanon to maintain stability. UNIFIL has warned of the fragile and volatile situation in southern Lebanon as Israel's 60-day deadline to withdraw from Lebanese territory approaches its end. UNIFIL spokesperson Andrea Tenetti reported daily violations of the November 27, 2024 ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah, which mandated Israel's withdrawal from Lebanon by this Sunday. Despite the Israeli forces will remain in southern Lebanon, according to Prime Minister Netanyahu's office. Tenetti condemned Israel's actions, citing violations of UN Resolution 1701, and urged all parties to uphold the ceasefire to ensure stability and support the Lebanese army's deployment. The Lebanese Ministry of Health has reported the deaths of 2 individuals and injuries to 17 others after Israeli forces opened fire on citizens attempting to return to their towns in southern Lebanon. The Israeli military announced a redeployment in various locations in the south, claiming the move aims to facilitate the effective deployment of the Lebanese army and dismantle Hezbollah's infrastructure in the region. Hezbollah's Deputy Secretary General Sheikh Naim Qasim has announced that Israel is responsible for the assassination of a party official in the western Bekaa region last week. In a speech, he further confirmed that internal investigations are ongoing to uncover further details surrounding the incident. Qasim accused Israel of deploying 75,000 soldiers in Lebanon, asserting its military superiority over Hezbollah. Despite affirming 1,350 ceasefire violations by Israel, he affirmed Hezbollah's commitment to the agreement but rejected any extension for Israel's withdrawal. Israeli government spokesman David Minster has called on Hezbollah to withdraw beyond the Litani River. Minster emphasized that Israeli forces will remain stationed at the Lebanese border. The defense minister, Israel Katz, affirmed Israel's commitment to the ceasefire in Lebanon and Gaza, while facilitating displaced Gazans' return north. Katz warned that anyone defying Israeli forces will face consequences, stressing Tel Aviv's refusal to revert to the pre-October 7th status quo. Israeli Knesset member Benny Gantz has stated that the Israeli army must remain in southern Lebanon until all agreement conditions are fulfilled to protect northern residents. Gantz called for expanding ground and air operations in Lebanon, emphasizing that Israel would not allow any forces to establish themselves along its borders. Gantz reiterated Israel's commitment to safeguarding Hezbollah's residents, not Kafr Kella, and vowed to maintain security without reverting to past vulnerabilities. France's foreign ministry has urged Israeli forces to withdraw south of the Blue Line and hand control to the northern region to the Lebanese army. Expressing concern over casualties from Israeli operations in Lebanon, the ministry emphasized its ongoing efforts with international partners to enforce the ceasefire agreement. France called on all parties to honor commitments, highlighting the importance of de-escalation and adherence to agreements for regional stability. And for more analysis on the story, we move to Mark in our newsroom. Mark.
Thank you, Hani. So for more on the current situation in southern Lebanon, we are joined from Beirut by military and strategic expert Brigadier General Adel El-Mashmoushi. Thank you very much for being here with us on Q News. So how significant is the White House's announcement of extending the Israel-Lebanon ceasefire until February the 18th?
Greetings to you and to the dear viewers. In fact, the decision of extending the ceasefire to 18th comes with the Israeli will and the US implementation, who approved the extension that should have been 60 days, then added 18 days with one more item to release the Lebanese hostages that Israel has taken prisoners during the 60-day timeline. Extension to extend this decision to extend the ceasefire was not a very good decision. These troops cannot achieve any basic or essential targets by staying in Lebanon. The security of these troops will and these troops will not be able to remain in their positions without the Lebanese population approving this. There are no any life essentials for these Lebanese villages, populations, but they are still persistent to go back to their the rubbles of their houses. I think these movements will continue till the Lebanese population is able to restore all the lands the Israeli troops has taken over during the war.
And Mr. Mashmoushi, what are the challenges that are facing the negotiations between Lebanon and Israel and the United States when it comes to the release of Lebanese detainees that were captured after October 7th in 2023?
There are two challenges. First, the Israeli withdrawal from all Lebanese lands. The second is delivering and releasing all Lebanese detainees, including the bodies of the martyrs who the Israeli forces has kept. I think the United States of America is committed the pledge to hand over all the dead bodies and the detainees, which is stipulated in the decision.
And given Israel's partial withdrawal from central Lebanon, but obviously its continued military presence in the south, how does this align with UN Resolution 601? And what are the implications for this, from this for international law?
Of course, Israel remaining in Lebanon after the 60 days is a severe violation to the agreement between the Lebanese state and Israel with U.S. sponsorship. And the violations are not just that, but during the 60 days, the Israeli troops committed way too many violations, destroying and burning houses in the border villages. This is not new for Israel. These violations and crimes committed without any justifications. It has been happening in the Gaza Strip all along, and now in southern Lebanon. And despite of the power differences, the Lebanese troops are committed to 1701 resolution as the best solution to stop all military operations and Israeli violations, especially that it is sponsored by the U.S. And we're all aware that the U.S. power has the capability and the upper hand over the Israeli authorities. Especially also that France has good relationship with Lebanon.
And you mentioned violations there. There have been daily reports of ceasefire violations. What role could UNIFIL play in ensuring adherence to the agreement and preventing further escalation in southern Lebanon?
In fact, the UNIFIL don't have the military power or mandate to stop the violations completely. They are only monitoring troops working to stop simple violations, diplomacy, and through the diplomatic committee that is formed for this regard, which is the prevailing stability and the non-continuity of the military operations on the borders.
And what are the potential consequences of Israeli Knesset member Benny Gantz's call to expand ground and air operations in Lebanon? And how could this impact civilian populations?
I think this is a kind of political pressure on the Lebanese population, and I think these statements are out after the Israeli troops witnessed the civilians, unarmed civilians, willing to go back to the rubbles of their homes, as they evacuated tens of villages on the borders under there were no arms in these villages. The people, unarmed people, were facing Israeli tanks completely unarmed, as they are connected to this land. We saw a lot of dead bodies are still under the rubbles in these villages.
And finally, Mr. Mashmoushi, how does this stance urging Israeli withdrawal south of the Blue Line influence the broader situation, the international response, and could it lead to greater pressure on Israel to comply with the ceasefire agreement?
I think the French situation is completely compassionate with the civilian population and the Lebanese state, as France is well aware that Israeli is the one carrying out all of the violations, as the Lebanese state, including the Hezbollah troops or the resistance, is committing to the ceasefire agreement. The truth is the Israeli troops is not responding to the French pressures. They are only working with the US directives, especially President Trump directives. And I think in this regard, President Trump is actually pressuring Israel to withdraw from the Lebanese territories, and there are unannounced considerations that kept the Israeli troops for more 2 weeks.
Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on Q News. It was military and strategic expert Brigadier General Adel Al-Mashmoushi. Thank you very much. And it's back to you, Hani.
Thank you, Mark. Moving on to Syria, where French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot has announced lifting some sanctions on Syria, aligning with the European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas's expectations for the EU to ease sanctions. Speaking at a European Union foreign ministers meeting in Brussels, Kallas highlighted that the decision would mark the start of a gradual process. This reflects a shift in European Union policy towards Syria amid changing dynamics in the region. Now we turn to the latest developments in Gaza. Israeli airstrikes have targeted a vehicle in Tul Karam's Nur Shams camp, setting it on fire. The military confirmed a joint operation with the Shin Bet, during which the airstrike took place. Palestinian health sources reported 1 dead and 3 wounded in the attack. That comes as the occupied West Bank and Jerusalem continue to experience daily incursions and raids by Israeli forces and settlers, leading to confrontations, arrests and the use of live ammunition and tear gas. Israeli occupation forces have arrested 20 Palestinian civilians, including 4 children, during a raid on Beit Amr in northern Israel. The forces targeted multiple neighborhoods, raiding homes and damaging belongings. Additionally, 7 Palestinians, including a university student, were arrested in Beit Awa, southwest of Al-Khalil. Earlier, Israeli forces issued demolition orders for 7 homes Idna of Al-Khalil. These actions are part of ongoing Israeli military operations in the region. Middle East stability. That came in a foreign ministry statement where the ministry emphasized support for Palestinian resilience and rights, rejecting actions such as settlement expansion, annexation or displacement. Egypt urged the global community to implement the 2-state solution, establishing a Palestinian state on the pre-1967 borders, including East Jerusalem, in line with international law and legitimacy. Jordan's Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi has reaffirmed his country's opposition to the displacement of Palestinians from Gaza. That came during a press conference where he emphasized King Abdullah II's that Jordan is for Jordanians and Palestine is for Palestinians, advocating for a 2-state solution as the path to peace. Al-Safadi reiterated Jordan's unwavering rejection of forced displacement and its ongoing efforts to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza, demonstrating Jordan's commitment to regional stability. Tens of thousands of displaced Palestinians began moving from central and southern Gaza back to the north in the early morning. That came after the agreements mediated by Egypt, Qatar and the US between Hamas and Israel. Al-Qahira News correspondent reported that Al-Rashid Street is now open for pedestrian movement only, while Salah ad-Din Street will allow vehicle traffic northwards. Humanitarian organizations urged adherence to designated routes and caution regarding all remnants. Palestinian presidential spokesperson Nabila Bourdaina has rejected proposals for forced displacement and alternative homelands, describing them as destabilizing and chaotic for the region. He emphasized that lasting peace must be based on international legitimacy and the Arab Peace Initiative. Highlighting Palestinians' resilience, Bourdaina reaffirmed their commitment to their homeland and called for the recognition of Palestinian statehood with East Jerusalem as its capital, supported by international efforts, particularly from Egypt and Jordan. An Al-Qahira News correspondent on the Egyptian side of Rafah has reported that 14 fuel trucks entered Gaza from Egypt today. He confirmed that these fuel trucks are within the 308 trucks with medical and food supplies that have entered Gaza through the Karim Abu Salim and Al-Auja, known as Nitsana, border crossings in preparation to enter the Gaza Strip. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has announced that Israel would enforce the ceasefire along both its northern border with Lebanon and the southern Gaza front as displaced Palestinians return from southern Gaza to the north. Katz warned that anyone violating orders or threatening Israeli forces would face consequences. He further claimed that Israel would not allow a return to the pre-October 7 situation. Resigned Israeli Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir has condemned the return of displaced Palestinians to northern Gaza, calling it absolute surrender rather than victory. Ben-Gvir criticized the decision, arguing it undermines the sacrifices of Israeli soldiers and demanded a renewed military offensive. He claimed that reopening the Netzarim route and enabling the return of tens of thousands of Palestinians to northern Gaza is a symbolic victory for Hamas, reflecting a failure in Israel's strategy. Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto and Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim reiterated their unwavering support for Palestinian independence during a joint news conference. Speaking during his state visit to Malaysia, President Subianto emphasized that both nations remain firmly committed to the two-state solution as the only viable path to resolving the conflict between Israel and Palestine. As Muslim-majority countries, Malaysia and Indonesia have consistently championed the Palestinian cause, advocating for a peaceful resolution that ensures the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. And moving on to the United States, where the Israeli Prime Minister's office has clarified that Prime Minister Netanyahu has not been officially invited to the White House. That came in response to the media reports suggesting a planned meeting with the US President Donald Trump on February 1st. Israeli media reported that Netanyahu is expected to visit Washington from February 3rd to the 5th, pending final arrangements. These are all the news we have for now, but here's a reminder of today's main stories. The United States announces an extended Israel-Lebanon ceasefire. Lebanon reports 2 dead and 17 injured as Israel redeploys in the south. And France and the European Union signal easing Syria sanctions. This concludes our news bulletin for the hour. But please don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at QNewsEGY to stay informed. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.